So today's video came about because one day I was minding my own business scrolling on Instagram and I came across a video and a couple of articles that were talking about yet another Chanel price increase. I think everybody in the luxury community at this stage, unless you've been living under a Chanel shaped rock all this time, is well aware of them and almost perhaps desensitized to the frequency of the price increases. However, what struck me about this particular news is that it's no longer just the case of, a 3%, maybe even a 5% increase on a handbag. It's now a case that Chanel classic flaps in particular are going up in the thousands. And so that's why I wanted to sit down and film a video for you guys today, because this is news that is unprecedented, at least until this point. And I think this sets a new kind of tone for the way that Chanel means to go forward. It was a shock to me. It's a shock to a lot of people online that saw this news. As you guys know, I am a fan of the fashion house. I do have a lot of Chanel handbags, as well as many other accessories and footwear and things like that. But it's really put into question my loyalty to the brand, because while I am fortunate enough to own some classic flaps, I have two medium classic flaps here. I also have my small classic flap, as well as, reissues and new classic bags and minis and things like that. I am really second guessing whether I want to support this brand further, and I know a lot of people out there are too. And so let's just play the video in question from Luxury Promise. I have it on my phone. I will throw it up on the screen as well.
News is in that Chanel will be increasing their prices in 2024, and here is what we need to know. According to multiple sources online, Chanel is rumoured to be doing a huge price increase, especially the classic flaps, which will have a steep increase in price. The new prices are estimated to be around $2,000 more for a small classic flap. The small classic flap will cost around $11,240 US. A medium will come in at $11,850 US, and a jumbo classic flap will now be at $12,750 US. This goes to show you that Chanel bags really are a great investment. They become more expensive every year, and pre-loved bags become also more expensive and more popular every year.
So that is the video. Now, they've mentioned some sources or rumours. I have tried to validate these rumours. I did find a little swipe through carousel article from Diamonds in Dubai, which is another luxury news source that I really like on Instagram, and they have quantified a lot more detail of the price increases, and I believe they are happening in January, and they may have already passed actually at the time of filming in terms of the percentage that we're going up. It's not just like a 3 or 5%, which is usual. The mini classic flap in the rectangle is up 11.43%. So then you've got the square mini, and that is up 11.91%. Then the small classic flap is up 17.08%, which is absolute madness to think that the bag that I have currently with me is basically like doubled in price. And then the same goes for the medium classic flap. It's up 16.18%. And then we are going through to the jumbo, which is up 15.91%. Then they go on into the maxi classic flap, which is up 15.80%. And then they also talk about some more other kind of classic bags, which are the boy bags. So the old medium is up 12.12%. And then you've got small boy bag, which is up 13.11%. I used to have a boy bag and I'm thinking, oh, maybe I should have kept that one. It's just crazy to me that my beautiful babies, which, were expensive at the time, but I did not realize were going to basically be worth double what they are just literally like a couple of years later. So obviously I feel very, very relieved that I was able, and I'll just put these bags away, to get my hands on these handbags so early in advance of these horrific and aggressive price increases. However, I do have a lot of compassion for those of you out there that are maybe newer to Chanel, the fashion house, or you just want one classic flap that'll be your holy grail. This is just putting Chanel even further out of reach for them. And you can see if I throw up a chart of the Chanel classic flap price increases since their launch in 1955 through to, I guess, the most recent price increase before this one, you can see the classic flaps used to be only a couple $100 in 1955, and they have just aggressively gone up. The curve has just gone ever more steeper in the last kind of 5 years or so, and I think that trend is going to continue. It's very clear the trajectory that Chanel envisages it being on. And I think compared to other fashion houses, namely Hermes, which Chanel is clearly competing for and is often brought up in terms of, you know, quality, prestige, etc., they're clearly trying to position themselves as the kind of premium fashion house, the one that everybody goes towards. So now that we've covered a bit of the context of the price increase, I just want to share my own personal thoughts, feelings and observations around why Chanel have done this move and what this actually means for the house or for others considering buying from the house. I believe that this will be my last set of classic flaps that will be in my collection, at least from buying in store. I'm not going to be buying handbags that are in the tens of thousands. That is just silly money. That's really stupid to do. And clearly in the videos that I've done before around, you know, what the price of one classic flap can actually get you, you know, these bags are now the cost of a nice holiday, luxury holidays. You know, they can actually even potentially contribute to, you know, a deposit on a house or even a car. And so when you put things into perspective like this, it is just not worth wasting, and I will say wasting, tens of thousands of pounds on a handbag that is questionable in quality, especially if you're not in the super rich or elite category where money is essentially disposable for you. And I think if there was a classic flap that I really liked one day, I'd be more likely to get it from resale or just to get a bag from another brand. Like, I have enough handbags from Chanel and otherwise to keep me preoccupied. I think buying Chanel handbags in the future is something that I would only consider if the handbags are new classics, so obviously a lot lower in kind of value and less susceptible to price increases, so more seasonal handbags potentially, or like I mentioned earlier, buying on the resale market. I tend to go for bags that are just pretty much like pristine and haven't been used as opposed to like pre-loved items. And I also think just in supporting the house as a whole, even when it comes to footwear, other accessories, you know, costume jewelry, it's ones that I've already got quite a lot in my collection. I'm very fortunate in that way. So I don't think I will be adding very much more, if at all, even though I was building up my loyalty for the fashion house. And, you know, that increases in the terms of kind of rewards, shall we say, that you get back. But being invited to various events or parties is not worth the hefty price tags that you're paying. While it is disappointing and disheartening, I do kind of understand where they are coming from and what they are trying to do from a business perspective. I think it's really hard for people to decouple the individual and the business aspect, because people think that this is a personal attack on them, that, you know, they're trying to save so hard for these bags, and that F you Chanel, you know, you're not getting my business, how dare you do this. And those things are all valid from an individual perspective. However, Chanel is not a charity, they are a business at the end of the day. They want to make the most amount of money with the least cost as they possibly can. That is just business savviness. And yes, there will be, you know, potentially reputational damages or whatnot, but I think they've weighed those up and they've understood that with good marketing, with good advertising, that they could probably power through. And so this leads me on to another point of observation in which, you know, this is a very profitable business move for sure for Chanel, but they are clearly trying to pivot to a new target audience that is not the lower to middle income household. You know, clearly they had boardroom meetings, people sitting around a table discussing the impact on them reputationally or even revenue wise as well. And clearly by increasing these prices so aggressively, they are clearly targeting a very specific target audience, and it is not the you and I of the world. It is the rich and powerful, it's the elite, and they do not care really about how this makes us feel because we are not the target audience. I think that they have realized through social media that Chanel is too easily accessible. Chanel is clearly worn by a vast demographic, from those that are more, I suppose, quite luxury or elegant to ones that are a little bit more, shall I say, trashy. And I think they're trying to slowly weed out the trashier elements of society that is wearing Chanel classic flaps, and they're trying to elevate it a lot more because I think they are quite envious and observant also of the Hermes marketing and the brand image, and they, you know, as in the nature of competition, want to position themselves higher so that when you think luxury handbag, you go straight to the Chanel classic flap and therefore the Chanel as a fashion house. But that being said, you know, you would think the elite is only a smaller group of people. Surely they'd want to catch to the young ones, if you will, the aspirational group that, you know, will rise up in their careers, will get access to more money. While that does seem to be the most logical kind of cycle of demand, but that being said, there are actually several schools of thought that disprove this kind of curve of demand downwards, and one of them is one that I've talked about in previous videos. It's all psychological really, and it's known as the Vapin Effect, and it's from an economist or thinker called Thorstein Veblen, I believe, and he's mentioned in his work that while you will see a natural curve of demand go downwards and dip as the price increases because fewer people will want those items, but with the Veblen effect, despite the increase in price, actually what you're seeing is not a decline or a waning in the popularity of an item or the desirability of an item. You're actually seeing it increase. So while the curve is downwards usually for a curve of demand, and I'll throw up a graph actually just to better describe this, the Veblen effect goes in apparent contradiction to the law of demand or the demand curve, which, you know, usually would go down as you see prices increase, demand will decrease because less people want it, it's outpriced a lot of buyers. The Veblen effect, however, notes that it's actually the inverse and that you're actually seeing more demand as the price increases because it actually makes the items more desirable to the masses, and you know what the elite have, the masses will inherently want. Even if you talk about things like quality issues and things like that, there will still be a significant portion of the population that will still want those items, and you're seeing this actually in practice by the fact that Chanel has been doing price increases for many years now. We are not even surprised at this point that price increase is happening, and yet there are queues, videos, photos of people sleeping overnight on the streets of Chanel waiting for the new release of a collection. So that speaks volumes as to the fact that, you know, people will probably even want to flex that they still have this disposable income, even if they cannot afford it themselves, just to appear like they are part of that exclusive elite. And especially because it kind of goes hand in hand with something known as the snob effect, which I've also talked about in a previous video of why people buy luxury, because people inherently want to feel superior, better than others. And if that means getting something that is silly money, yes, but they just want to flex it and feel better about themselves, that they've acquired this trophy, if you will, compared to others, then people will do it. Like, do not underestimate the lengths that people will go to show that they're better than others. Why else would there then, as a result, be spoof releases of items like the Mischief red boot, or you know, the Balenciaga, or is it like towel? Even if we're in a recession, even if times are tough, people want to show that they have silly money to spend. Those are probably the people that Chanel are wanting to attract in the first place. I do think that there will be still a very, very prevalent demand for Chanel. It will not wane as significantly as people feel, even if they want to put up like this strike, if you will, that you're never going to buy Chanel again. They don't care about that. Also, it makes their brand more valuable, clearly, because we'll still go cuckoo over Chanel bags. Even for me as a creator, the fact that my Chanel videos do consistently the best on my channel is in itself proof that the brand is not going anywhere, the classic flap is not going anywhere. I also think that you will still see people who are trying to, I suppose, capitalize on this very predictable kind of what is known, I believe, as the hot-handed effect, where previous price increases dictate that there will be future price increases. So they want to get in on that action. I think you're going to see a lot more people still buying Chanel for the sake of resale. I also think that the resale market as a whole, or pre-love market, will be very, very popular, and it'll be propped up by the fact that you can get cheaper alternatives. Though I do believe that Chanel, as well as many other fashion houses, are making efforts to crack down on resale and who can be kind of licensed resellers. I don't think they're going to be very successful. People always find ways to get Chanel, or even pivot to counterfeits for that matter, which will give them that effect for a lot less of a price tag. But you will see that the resale market will still be propping up the inherent need, I suppose, for people who want the Chanel classic flap or otherwise. While this is a smart business move, you know, even if I don't like it, I believe it is smart because you're essentially increasing your revenue without doing extra work. I do believe that this puts Chanel in this kind of vicious cycle of aggressive price increases. You've kind of now set the precedent for, you know, price increases that are going to be at least in the few hundreds, almost thousands every year. So they can't really stop at this stage. You can't really then just, you know, have one price increase one year that's super aggressive and then just pause on it. Clearly they are touting the classic flat as investment pieces and clearly them as a brand as, you know, very, very valuable. But if they stop their price increases, they will inherently be less valuable, and then actually you'll see the Vapin Effect working against them. Because the thing that gives Chanel this air of superiority and exclusivity and demand right now is the fact that people know, as with the hot-handed effect, that previous price increases indicate future ones. So if they suddenly stop or even do a price decrease, we know that there's something very wrong with the fashion house. You immediately think outlet bargain bin, and you know, brands like Hermes then seem a lot more exclusive and elite in comparison. So they've kind of got themselves in this trap of aggressive price increases. So that's just something that I think they need to be quite mindful of, because now, yes, we've come to expect the price increases, but even the elite will have perhaps a certain window, especially if they're not going to be encrusted in diamonds or with exotic skins on it. I think there will be a ceiling. It'll just be a case of wait and see, and if there will be a bubble that eventually bursts, because then if the value of Chanel plummets, everybody, including the elite, will be affected, and that will be very interesting to see. And then on to another point around the kind of brand image and reputation. I think that they've carved their identity thus far around being exclusive because price increases, even if you don't personally agree and that quality is questionable. I do believe that people correlate as a whole value and craftsmanship with price, and they think that Chanel is inherently a prestigious historical fashion house. If they have an incident, a scandal that tarnishes this reputation, such as Balenciaga that we've talked about on this channel as well, that has obviously since become a ghost town. When I walk past the Balenciaga stores, there's nobody there that I can see buying. They're always in outlets, they're always in discounted you know, sales. They're trying to go on this kind of brand image refresh, but I don't think people easily forgive and forget when it comes to CP things, you know what I'm saying? I think if Chanel was to have a scandal like that, or any of its employees that are in head office or basically, you know, in public figures were to have scandal that public or that heinous, that would very much tarnish its image and its therefore ability to charge extortionate prices. They're only able to do that because they have an air of mystery around where they align, and they're quite vanilla in that way. But if they start to get a little bit spicy, like with Balenciaga, there will be a ceiling to which the Vapin Effect, the Snob Effect, hot-handed effect work together, and you will see people trying to shift their Chanel like it was the stock market crash of '08. And then the final observation that I have, which is arguably the most important at an individual level, especially for myself who has classic flaps, now that my bags are worth in the tens of thousands of pounds, possibly more in the incoming future, I am very scared from a safety and security perspective to wear them up, because they are now more valuable than even my Rolex watch, which I honestly thought was going to be like my highest ticket item that I'd ever get. Clearly not. My bags have increasing values, which is, you know, great if I was intending to sell them, but I'm not. Sometimes I often think that they are becoming liabilities if they continue increasing in this way. I'm not going to be able to take them out with as much security and comfort that I once did, because people won't know that I've got them before a price increase. They will just see that I have an expensive handbag that they would like to steal because it costs £10,000. And that is a very scary realization for me to have, to think that if the general public knew about this and this information got into the wrong hands, then all of us out there who have classic flaps will be targets on the street. And so that's making me rethink my security measures. It's making me rethink the size, obviously, of my collections. And as you'll know, I'm on a downsizing journey. That's also why I'm not really keen on buying more classic flaps. I'm into the new classics or seasonal bags from the house or other fashion houses as well, because it really puts a target on your back, not gonna lie. Even online, you know, you don't know who's watching. Perhaps it's a good thing that Chanel's trying to outprice individuals like us, because clearly we don't have the security entourages that the rich and famous do. Nor would I want that lifestyle, to be honest. I think it'll be quite stressful. So perhaps those liabilities can be kept for those individuals, but certainly for those that are still wanting to buy the classic flap and want to save, this is something that should be ever more in the forefront of your decision making, because you are indeed buying something that, while is an asset in the financial sense, is also a liability in the safety and security sense. I can imagine insurance policies will start being very popular as it pertains to luxury goods, because in the Western world at least, crime that is more often committed than before. Those are my thoughts and observations, and maybe even predictions about what will happen from the Chanel price increase. Let me know down in the comments below what you think of the Chanel price increase. Are you even surprised at the stage? Because I'm not that surprised really. It's just the amount this time, but I think we're all getting a little bit desensitized, which is a little bit worrying because this sum of money is not something to be turning your nose up at. But I will leave this video here. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll catch you in the next